Zina lived in a small fishing village called Kovu. She was the daughter of fishermen, and her family was poor, like most people in the village. Every day, Zina helped her mother killing the fish by the river. Dreaming of a better life, she often looked out across the water, wondering what it would be like to live in the city, far from the hard work of the village. One day, as Zina and her mother worked by the river, a group of men on a horseback appeared. They were dressed in fine clothes, and their leader, a tall man named Sefu, had eyes as sharp as an eagle. He was the richest man anyone in the village had ever seen. The people whispered about his wealth and power, saying he owned all the land as far as the eye could see. Sefu rode up to Zina and her mother, his eyes fixed on Zina. "Who is this beautiful young woman?" he asked in a deep, commanding voice. Zina's mother looked up nervously. "This is my daughter Zina," she said, her hands shaking. Sefu smiled, but there was something cold about it. "I would like to marry her," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "In return, I will give your family enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. You will never be hungry again." Zina's mother gasped. She had never imagined such an offer. The thought of being rich filled her with excitement, but she also felt uneasy. Sefu's eyes were too cold, too calculating, but the promise of wealth was too strong. "I will speak to her father," she said, her voice shaking. Zina overheard the conversation, her heart racing. She didn't know what to think. On one hand, she wanted to help her family escape poverty, but on the other hand, something about Sefu scared her. She didn't love him, but in the village, love wasn't always part of marriage. The next day, Sefu returned with more gifts, bags of gold, fine clothes, and even a cow. Zina's father agreed to marriage, happy to see his family lifted from poverty. Zina felt trapped, but said nothing. The whole village celebrated, thinking Zina was luckiest girl in Kovu, but her real troubles were only just beginning. On the day of wedding, Zina was dressed in a beautiful gown. Her mother wept with joy as she kissed Zina on the cheek. "We are going to live in a big house," she said, smiling. "You will never want for anything." Zina tried to smile back, but her heart was heavy. She was leaving everything she knew behind. As she walked down the path towards Sefu's grand home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. When they arrived at Sefu's mansion, Zina was amazed by its size and beauty. The floors were made of polished wood, and the walls were covered in tapestries and paintings. But there was something cold about the place, something that made her shiver. That night, after the guests had gone, Sefu's true nature began to show. He didn't speak to her as a wife, but as she were a servant. He ordered her to clean the floors and cook his meals. "You are my wife now," he said sharply, "but in this house you will do as I say." Zina was shocked. This was not the life she had imagined. She had thought she would be treated with respect, but instead, she was treated no better than a slave. She wanted to run, but where would she go? Her family depended on the money Sefu had given them. Days turned into the weeks, and Zina's life grew harder. Sefu's cruelty increased with each passing day. He never let her leave the house, and if she didn't obey him, he punished her by locking her in a small, dark room. Zina began to feel as if the beautiful mansion was a prison. One evening, as Zina scrubbed the floors, she overheard Sefu speaking with a group of men in a low voice. They were talking about the land and the people who worked it. "They belong to me, just like my wife," Sefu said with a cruel laugh. "I own everything." Zina's heart sank. She realized that to Sefu she was just another possession, something he could control and use as he pleased. But Zina was not willing to give up. She began to plan her escape. even though she didn't know how or when. One day, while Sefu was away on business, Zina found a hidden room in the mansion. Inside, she discovered old letters belonging of Sefu's first wife. The letters told a dark story of how she had been trapped and mistreated by Sefu, but the last letter was unfinished, and Zina realized that something terrible must have happened to her. Zina knew she had to get away before she met the same fate. She waited for the perfect moment, and one night when the moon was full, she made her move. She quickly slipped out of the house and ran as fast as she could, her heart pounding in her chest. But Sefu had eyes everywhere. Before she could reach the edge of the estate, she was catched by his guards and dragged back to the mansion. Sefu was waiting for her, his eyes dark with anger. "You thought you could leave me?" he growled. "You belong to me now." Zina was locked in the dark room again, but this time she felt more determined than ever. She wasn't going to give up. She knew that Sefu's cruelty couldn't last forever. There had to be a way out. Weeks passed and Zina's strength began to fade. She had no one to turn to, and the hope of escaping grew dimmer with each passing day. But one night, as she sat in the dark, she heard a strange noise. A door cracked open, and a figure stepped inside. It was one of the servants, an old woman who had worked for Sefu for many years. "I know what's he done to you," the woman whispered. "He did the same to his first wife, but there is a way out." Zina listened carefully as the old man explained the secret passage that led from the mansion to the river. It had been built long ago as an escape route. Zina's heart raced with hope. This was her chance. The next night, while Sefu slept, Zina made her escape through the secret passage. She followed the old woman's instruction carefully and soon found herself by the river. Free at last, she ran until she reached the village, where she collapsed at her parents' door. When her parents saw her, they were shocked. They had thought Zina was living life of luxury, but now they knew the truth. Zina's father, filled with guilt for what had happened, vowed to help his daughter. But Sefu was not finished. He sent his men to the village, demanding Zina's return. He threatened the village elders, saying he would destroy the village if Zina did not come back. Zina knew she couldn't let her village suffer because of her. She made the hardest decision of her life and agreed to return to Sefu. But as she walked back to the mansion, her heart heavy with sorrow, she knew that she would never truly be free. In the end, Zina's sacrifice saved her village, but she remained a prisoner in Sefu's house, a reminder that sometimes the price of freedom is too great to bear. The village would always remember her courage, but Zina's fate was a sad one, a story of love, loss, and the chains that even worlds cannot break. Kaya here, and your support means everything. Please like, subscribe, and let me know what you thought of this story. Goodbye dear friends, wishing you happiness always.